All right. Hello, everybody. And thank you so much for joining another episode of Raw Talks. Today, we have Jennifer Spohr with us. She is a wonderful friend and a soul purpose based coach. She helps people tap into their energies and get to know their exact spot that they are at and how they can go from point A to point B following their soul's purpose. Jen has an intuitive gift of tapping into our energies to exactly understand where the blocks are, what we can do to overcome those blocks and succeed in life. Jen, welcome to the show. We have Caren and Ash joining us as well.
Hi, ladies. Thanks for having me. We're going to have fun.
Yes, and we are so eager and ready to dive in. We want to hear a lot from you about your special gift, which I have experienced. I know that Caren probably has experienced as well. And Ash, you would love to hear this. I have my own experiences with Jennifer that I can share, and they're all wonderful. So Jen, we would like to, dive into that spot where first you realized that you have this gift.
How did I realize I had this gift? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I've been very sensitive to energies, in general, and to other people's energies ever since I can remember. But it really wasn't until recent years, actually, probably about 10 or 12 years ago, that I really started to focus on developing those gifts. So to kind of try to make a long story short, it's like I always had these gifts, but they were dormant, right? So what happened was I used to work in corporate, had this really successful career, checked all the boxes off the list. Basically what happened is I eventually hit a ceiling in my life. And that's when the fog started to lift. It was kind of like, okay, what else is there to learn now? Because I've always been, if you're familiar with Clifton strengths, learner is actually in my top 5. So I've always been extremely driven to learn and to master things. So when I ran out of promotions in my prior career, I started, studying personal development a lot closer. I started exploring my spiritual gifts and going to various classes and taking courses and all of that. And that's really how it came about. Everybody actually has intuitive gifts. They're just awake to them to different extents. And it's a lot like working a muscle, basically. Yeah. But it wasn't until really, even when I first started my coaching practice a few years ago, I didn't focus on including this in my work at first. I was more focused on helping people achieve balance and in their life and various other things. There was like an additional kind of coming out of the spiritual closet for me. Like my business has always been focused around spirituality because my relationship with, God, my higher power source, whatever you want to call it, is the center of everything that I do, right? I believe that each one of us has a purpose for being here, and it's unique to each of us. And anyway, so I eventually, because it was kind of this nudge, right? I eventually gave in to making that a prominent part of my practice. And, I'm a real person like everybody else. When I decided to make that more of a prominent part of my practice, there was a lot of fear of judgment. And you know what? The first time I did a post on LinkedIn, I remember it was on LinkedIn a couple years ago, I think it was. I figured that when I put that post out there saying that I was offering soul purpose readings, that somebody would have something to say to me about how it was against God's will and all of these other things. Oh. And sure enough, it happened. It happened, and I don't
almost like you willed it to happen. No offense, but like it's almost like it's gonna happen. So of course it happened.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, right? And this is what I work with my clients on as well, is that there's always going to be someone out there who doesn't agree with what you're doing, but there are always more people that do. And those are the people you're showing up for, right?
Well, that kind of leads me to, because I actually posted something like that today. Very similar in vein of what you just said about, like, people are going to judge you. There's going to be people who would, and especially in this day and age, people have this sort of day free reign to just say whatever. But, so my question is, like, what do you tell people? Because, it is kind of challenging to stay in your own lane. You know what I mean? Like, even with all the personal development, like I know all of us here do it and stuff like that. It is like, you intuitively know that you should be doing X, and you do the personal development and the mindset piece. But what do you say to the people, like, when the right people are going to come along? Like, how do you help them along in terms of, they have listen, we're all human. Sometimes it's just really hard to take the knocks from people, even though this is what you should be doing. So what do you say to those people when they're a little bit down on themselves in terms of that, they're human? Even with all the personal development, even with everything, what do you say to people? You know what? Stay on your path. Even if stay on your path is not enough. When stay on your path is not enough, is there something else you say to people to sort of help them along? Deal with all the minutia that comes at them?
Yeah, I mean, really what that comes down to is, you're the only one that can make what you want to happen. And it comes down to two things: believing in yourself and your faith.
Okay.
You have to establish a certain level of confidence in yourself to continue to forge ahead on your path. It's like I can tell you that my business is not a business. It's my mission. There is no other path. There is no other option. There's nothing that's going to stop me from continuing to move forward. And that's the perspective that you have to have. I had to share something with you. Really funny, because when I first started my business, I told everybody this. I said, you know what? I'm starting this business, and I don't care if I have to live in my car, eat top ramen, take coaching calls from my car, whatever, this freaking thing is happening. And that never happened. But my point with bringing it up is that there was a sense of conviction at that point. There was a knowing, not a hoping. Hoping is great, right? Hoping is great because it's better than despair. It's better than hopelessness, but it can still imply that it might not happen. You have to get to a place where it's happening.
I just love that so much that you just said, and you pointed out the difference. I know that does it too, because it is so true, right? I mean, knowing and hoping, that difference between that is so wonderful, because you're right. It's a whole different thing in the mindset, right? When you know something is going to happen versus where you hope, there is some sort of fear, there is some sort of hold back there. But when you know it, you are all in it, right? There is no other way. So kudos to you. Following, yeah,
and that doesn't mean, to kind of further answer your question, Caren, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have down days, right? The difference is that, and I say this a lot too, courage isn't the absence of fear, right? It's just like, you're going to have your down days, but you're going to keep moving forward. And that's where it can be really helpful to have the support of a coach or mentor who can be that support system for you, but also arm you with the right tools to set you up for success on your path.
Yeah. So Jen, do you utilize some of your intuitive gifts, of course, for your own personal growth and your own business development, in the sense of, like, do you get to meditate upon what next are you going to offer to your clients, or how much is it in line with your energies versus the people that you are wanting to attract, and how do you kind of determine that?
It's everything. That's who I am in my work, is who I am in my life. look within for that guidance, and to God, for everything. I mean, also, our business also has its own consciousness. So we are not our business, right? We're intertwined with our business, but we're not our business. So also really just tuning into, what are the next steps? Because your business has a blueprint as well, or like a purpose, if you will. So yes, always going within for that guidance. And that being said, I can't always see things as clearly for myself either. And the reason why is because I'm emotionally attached, right? It's my own stuff. And when we're we have to be in a certain mindset to go into that space, right? You really have to be in a neutral mindset to get clear answers for yourself. So, but that's where I'm part of groups, I'm part of a mastermind, I have a coach and mentor. I mean, I've always had somebody on my journey throughout this whole journey. There's always someone, just because I really believe that, we can't see everything ourselves. We all have blind spots, so to speak.
Absolutely. Surely do.
And I'm going to share something. So Jennifer, it's wonderful to have you on the show, first of all. Thank you for coming in. Yeah. And we actually met on LinkedIn last year. And I felt connected with Jennifer when she was sharing stories about, if we go back a little bit, about your mom, I believe it was, when you were taking care, and that's when I believe your corporate life was sort of, you were moving away from it, is what I was understanding. And then you had to make a choice, like you were saying, and it just changed the dynamics somewhere. Is that where everything started, sort of like taking a strong hold when you were like looking towards family?
Yeah, it actually started before that.
Okay.
It started probably, let's see, my mom died in the beginning of 2012. So it probably started in 2009, 2010, because I had run out of promotions in my job. I mean, I was next in line to replace my boss. Like I was, overseeing, had all this there was just nothing else left for me to accomplish. And that's when because I'm a learner, right, that's when I started to feel stagnant. And I was like, okay, well, it's time to think about what's next. And so I started, tapping into my spiritual gifts more, studying personal development, doing all these things outside of my corporate job. But I didn't answer that call to change right away. It was almost 2 years, maybe like a year and a half. I ignored it because I was fearful, like so many people are. At the time, I think I was 40. And I was scared shitless, to be quite frank with you, because I had this, the 6-figure job, all of the stuff, right? It's like, oh, I spent my whole last 23 years in this industry building this. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go next? So I just was kind of paralyzed a little bit by fear. But then my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she was really the catalyst for me actually taking action, because what happened, basically, I was living in New Jersey at the time. She was out here where I am at now in Idaho. And I was flying back and forth to try to help out and be with her as much as I could. But there was this one defining moment. I was by her bedside. This was like a few days before she died. And my phone was blowing up from some BS that could have been prevented to begin with, just stuff that needed my attention. And in that moment, I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not stuck. I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. I am free. And that's that. I'm going to start living my life the way that I want to. And that moment right there was the beginning of the end. So I ended up stepping down from my role voluntarily because at the time, so I didn't know I wanted to start a business right away. Okay. That came a little bit later. I just knew that I didn't want to be there, like back east anymore. I wanted to move closer to my family because of everything that had happened. So, it's kind of like a country song. Like I basically rented out my house, packed up my car, drove all the way across the country by myself, you know, headed out west. And because it wasn't an option to work remote back then. So they gave me an ultimatum. It was either my career or my family. So I chose my family. I didn't know it was going to come next. And I stayed on with the company for a little while in a consulting capacity, and just published an article you probably would resonate with this week that talks about my mom and how I did all these interviews, and because I was being stubborn and kept thinking, oh, I just need to get another one of the same job in a different company, it kept not happening for me. And I finally got the message that I needed to start a business, and that's really how the business, you know, came into play. Plus, I was inspired because at the time, it's like I could find a spiritual teacher or a coach or a business coach or whatever, but I couldn't find anybody to support me who really had it all, who really could take a holistic approach to helping me to integrate this spiritual awakening that I was experiencing into my existing life, you know, and how to just kind of manage and navigate all of that while starting a business. And that's what inspired me to do the work that I do today.
Totally get that. Go ahead, Caren.
I'm cutting in completely because number one, I grew up in Brooklyn. I live in Staten Island, so this is probably why I'm like a kindred spirit, because you used to live in Jersey. But that's the first thing, which I didn't know until literally just now. So we're fellow East Coasters. Oh, I still am. But also your whole entire story of not wanting to take the shit and you know, sort of being at the pinnacle of your career and everything like that. I mean, I resonate in terms of being presented with an opportunity and not necessarily taking it, and then being presented with an opportunity again and then finally taking it. In 2018, so I started my side business almost 6 years ago in the health and wellness space. And so I was doing that when I worked in corporate, and in 2018 I lost my job, and at the time I was turning 50 and looking for a job, and I started looking for a job, and it was a horrible, miserable, awful experience. I have literally nothing nice to say about it. And you go on LinkedIn now, nothing has changed, but nonetheless, I digress. My point being, I didn't take the sign, and so I kept looking for the same thing. Something like you, Jennifer, I kept looking for the same thing, whatever. It took me 9 months to find something. I found a contract position in NBC that went from 3 to 6 months. My contract position ended March 31st of 2020. And in January, I knew that the project was going to die. So before the pandemic hit, I knew that they weren't extending and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I can't look for a job anymore. And then the pandemic hit anyway. And so at that time, I was like, okay, listen, I got to give this a go full time then. Like, obviously twice and like 2 times the universe is presenting me with an opportunity. You kind of have to take it. And so even though you intuitively knew that you should have taken it that first time, would you agree that even though we should listen to our intuition, sometimes, and I would say it's best that we didn't, but sometimes we receive it differently in a way when we ignore it the first time, and then when we're presented with the opportunity another time, we have the more conviction, we have the wait, you know what, no, this is really what it's meant to be, and so therefore we come in with more vigor, more conviction, more something. Would you agree with that?
I would say yes. You know, everything unfolds exactly as it's meant to. The thing is that as humans, we have free will, right? So there's an endless paths of possibility, right? If I would have made one slight different decision in a particular moment, I could have ended up at that path even earlier. But the answer is yes. I mean, I agree with you. I also feel like our purpose is kind of like a North Star, basically. So because of the free will decisions I had made in my life up to that point, I often say this, in my prior career, I was dating my purpose. So there was this one part of my job as a leader, the coaching part, the mentoring part, the helping people develop themselves to be their best selves in their career. I loved that part of my job, and I got to impact hundreds of people with it. But then there was this other part of my job that I was really good at, but it was like a burnout skill. It was process improvement. I was really good at it. And it serves me in my business today and with my clients too, because I'm really good at simplifying things for people. But I wasn't in love with that, So when I started my business, I got to build it exactly the way that I wanted to. And then I really felt like I had reached that destination. You know what I mean? Like that North Star. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was going to say, sometimes for me, how it looks like is we feel stubborn, like this is what it should be, and we will stay on this path. And then things keep happening, but we do not give it importance. Because for us, it's like taking this huge leap, which does not make sense money-wise, society, yourself, You just feel like, why would I be doing this? But there have been opportunities that keep coming up. And then something big happens, which is like shakes you up. You're like, okay, I really need to take this seriously, And I'm meant to be doing, like there's a completion to what you're doing. And now you have to move on to something else. But we are just so stubborn that we do not want to give up, and we keep seeking the same thing until we find that huge nudge that, okay, you know what, move from that chair, you need to get to another one.
I'm going to share a tip that you can share with everybody, right? What you said on that is so important, because what you're talking about, that stubbornness, is the ego mind. And I say this often, that our mind is a faithful servant, and it is, but it's of this life only. Our soul, our heart's guidance, which our heart resides at the intersection of the spiritual and the physical, it has the blueprint for our lives. And so whenever anybody is considering making a decision, it's really important to get into that heart space, to get out of your head, right? Because the mind will drive us insane, because it will just keep making assessments based upon your past experience and what it already knows. It's not wired for expansion like your soul is.
And it also takes safety into consideration, I feel. It's like, what do you feel safe with, If you're taking a complete different direction, it's like, that's not safe. Why am I meant to be doing, become something totally different? But it's like, can I really play that role as well in this lifetime?
Yeah, absolutely. And that feeling of needing to be safe and that fear of change is also the result of environmental conditioning, right? What we're taught by our parents, teachers, authority figures, and not knocking any of them, because everybody ultimately is doing the best they can, right? Every person is on their own unique journey of learning here.
It's interesting you brought that up, Ish, because and what you said. So I recently, Tracy Litt, I don't know if any of you know who she is. She's like a personal development. She's like newer in the personal development field, I feel like. Anyway, she just did a training with my team, and she talked about exactly that, Ish, with the playing it safe. And what she talked about, Jennifer, she said something similar to what you said. It's like the mind is saying, nope, this is what you should be doing. So anytime we step out of our comfort zone, or anytime we do something that steps away from what our mind, what we are conditioned to think is safe, our mind is like, wait, what the hell you do? What, really? You know what I mean? And it kind of, it's like, and that's kind of, but I think, and to your point with the conviction early and all that kind of stuff, that's the whole point of stepping out. And yeah, you're afraid, like you said earlier, Jennifer, you're afraid about people going to judge you. But when you step out, and I know I'm going through this journey myself personally, when you kind of step out and step into your power and step away from what you know is safe and everything like that, it's it's so freeing, and it just allows you so much more space. And haven't you found in your experience, Jennifer, that like the minute you started stepping into your power and just kind of surrendering and just letting it be, how much really came to you because of that?
It's liberating as hell. And when we decide that we're going to let go, it does. It all comes in, because what happens, there's a physical reaction as well. What happens when we're in a place of fear, our body and mind is literally constricted. So we're repelling any insights, ideas, whatever it is that we want. When we're in a place of fear, we're keeping it out. And I mean, the best way I can describe it, like really showing up as you, is I jumped out of a plane once, and it feels like that. Like, holy shit, like I'm free.
Yeah, I want to add to that exactly, because I have also jumped out of a plane. So I really exactly
yes.
understand what you were saying. So when I had gone skydiving, we had to jump out of this plane at an elevation of 17,000 feet or something. Now, it was really interesting that the fear that we talk about, right, was only existing till the nanoth second that I didn't jump out in the air. Until and unless I was inside the plane, there was fear. But as soon as I was out there, no fear at all. That liberation feeling was so real that you didn't want this to end. You didn't care that there was no fear of falling down. There was no fear of what is going to happen. You were in the moment, rejoicing the liberation, rejoicing that air coming onto you and you're flying, and it really felt out of the world, right? So I think that is such a beautiful thing, that until and unless we hold ourselves back, we are shrinking. Something within us, to your point, is like very much held back, and that's where the problem is. But only and see, that is the courage that we talk about, right? We are not worried about how far we are going to go. It's about how quickly can we start in that direction. That's really what that is, right? And I think that it is so important to tap into that. One other question that I had for you, Jennifer, was that how do we understand that the messages that we are hearing in our head is not coming from our ego mind, but it's coming from our intuition, from our soul? Like, how do we distinguish the two?
Mm-hmm. So the easiest way to tell the difference is that the ego mind has fear-based thoughts, okay, and guidance that wants to keep you safe or small. Your intuitive guidance will always feel neutral, but it might scare the hell out of you. But that's only because it's guiding you to do something that's outside of your comfort zone. But that's because it's always guiding you toward expansion, right? And so the fear is only ever coming from your mind because it's fighting to keep you in status quo. So that's the easiest way to tell. If you can dive in deeper, like I said earlier, it's like working a muscle. So you can start to pay attention to how your intuition speaks to you, right? Because we all receive that in a unique way. And if you practice that, there's nothing like it. It's a massive confidence builder. Imagine being so tapped in that every time you make a decision and ask yourself a question, you immediately get the answer and you trust it and you act on it.
Yeah, I think that trusting and acting on it is such an important piece, because many times you feel like, I am in the same cusp right now that you guys were talking earlier, where, should I, leave my current situation, my current job, which is, which I enjoy doing. But, there is this different calling. I don't know how to explain that, but it is just like a calling. And then that it is so strong that I want to, respond to it. And I am responding to it in a certain way, but it's still asking more and more out of me. And I'm at this place where I'm like raring to go and then holding myself back, and I'm doing this back and forth. So it is just a perfect
Yeah. It will keep getting stronger too, you know?
Yes, you're
and
right.
if you don't mind me offering a piece of advice,
Please
you know, what you can also do in that is just pray on to ask to be guided to take the steps that you need to most directly take to move into that direction.
Yes, definitely.
But you have to have the willingness to do it, right? So
yes,
You know
absolutely.
how I feel about this is when you're called for a calling, for example, right? You feel happy. You don't feel restricted. You do not feel that I have to push myself to do this work or this role. You just feel free, right? That this is coming to me naturally. Is how I feel for myself. But I'm not sure, Jennifer, you can maybe.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, that's exactly how it feels. And I mean, like I said, my work isn't work. It's a mission. It's like I live that, I embody that, and that doesn't mean that I don't have down days like everybody else. And it certainly hasn't. It's not the easy road, you know. Following your calling, answering your calling, and being an entrepreneur for that matter is the ultimate test of personal development and faith. But when you're answering a calling, there is no other option. I will never abandon this path. It might evolve and it might change a bit, but I'm always going to do it.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. It is definitely it's coming from a place of knowing for sure. There is some kind of a, you know, like a strong understanding of this is where I belong. There is a feeling of belongingness there. There is a feeling of fearlessness there. When you think about it and you visualize yourself on that path, it is fearless. It is effortless, to your point. And it is extremely, like, you know, it makes you happy because, you know, you are finally in tune, aligned with what you're supposed to do here. I want to share one really quick personal experience out of working with Jennifer just at this point, because I was last year in 2020, I was trying to, like, you know, fight this inner calling and like not really listen to it, you know, just because it was so new. I was afraid, you know, I was really at that place. So I worked with Jennifer, and oh my God, what a massive shift she brought in my outlook. And we did the coaching together. We also did the intuitive guidance that she receives. Like we did the intuitive reading, the soul purpose reading. And my God, there are some things that she mentioned in those calls are so true, and they stick with me to date, which is why I have been able to, you know, follow my calling even more, and I'm proceeding in that direction relatively fearlessly, and I'm just feeling great. So I wanted to take this moment to thank you, Jennifer, for that. It was really helpful, you know, because at that time, like you say, that, you know, during our path, especially during these times when we are going through certain changes and we are awakening, and, you know, those times we really need that one push, that one, you know, one nudge that you know, go ahead, you are in the right direction or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what that was. You must be getting to do a lot of that kind of work, Jennifer. It must be so fulfilling for you.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I work with, you know, kind of the same people, but people that are typically could be in two different places, right? So I work with the person who was where you are last year, right? Just kind of needing to gain clarity and summon the courage, you know, to move forward. And then I also work with the person who's already an entrepreneur, but they're feeling guided to make changes, and again, kind of need some guidance and clarity around moving forward to make those changes and stepping into their next level of impact and growth. Yeah, I love helping people align with their path. I love it. I feel like now more than ever in the world that we're living in, we need people such as yourselves, you know, stepping forward allowing your voice to be heard, and you guys are inspiring other people, to do the same, and that's what we need. That's what's gonna change our world,
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree with that. And sorry, Caren, just one quick second. Just wanted to ask you something quickly, Jennifer. What do you think is one takeaway that you have found in the recent pandemic that you feel that this will help strengthen intuition in a person? Like, is there something different that happened during this pandemic? Just one quick thing.
Wow, I mean, that's like a rabbit hole right there. I could go down that hole and talk for hours about what I think about all that. But what I would say about it is that every experience, there's a hidden blessing in everything. And I am in no way, shape, or form minimizing the hardship that so many small business owners, people who have lost loved ones, have endured, through that time. But it has also reignited a spark in a lot of people, I think, which is probably the biggest takeaway. Is it's reignited a spark for people to reconnect with each other and to find the humanity in themselves and each other again. And it's just woken a lot of people up. It's shaken a lot of people awake and shown them how to come back into their own power. What I mean by that is, we all know that we can't believe everything we hear from the media or from just whatever other people tell us, wherever that source is coming from, right? I think a lot of things that have come to light over the last year have taught a lot of people about what truth feels like for them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I just think in many ways it's been empowering to people.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, Caren. Go ahead.
No,
Does that make sense what I was saying?
It's going to be a similar thing that I asked, but to piggyback also, like, because even with what I do, like, I've been seeing, I think the thing is too, there's more humanity, but there's also the rug can kind of be pulled out from. So talking about the universe earlier, and I was presenting you an opportunity to do something. Many people, you go through you get to go to college, get a job, and I'm not knocking it or anything. It's good for some people, but this pandemic has also shown that the secure thing is not always so secure. So a lot of people, I know we've seen an influx of people, having the conversation and saying, what, no, I want to do something different, or looking into doing something different. So to your point, Jennifer, it is also about humanity, but it's also about listening to their intuition, listening to what is being presented to them, saying, what, no, maybe this isn't the right path for me. I don't know what is, but what I thought once to be true is not. And so some of these people are like, I don't know what to do. And that's obviously where you come in. But you were talking about finding your voice earlier. And that's where I wanted to come in. You were saying about all of us. And I think that's also, even though this is what you should be doing, sometimes stepping into your power can be a little bit challenging. And using your voice can be a little bit challenging. Wouldn't you like? And when I say challenging, I mean, we have a voice and we want to use it. Sometimes we worry how it would be perceived, but I think it's also a matter of, there's also the inward thing. So yes, you're convicted about your business and everything like that, but what about yourself and the work that you have to do on yourself? We have voices, yeah, and that's great, but if we don't believe in ourselves and we don't believe we're worth it, it doesn't matter what we're putting out there.
Yeah, it absolutely impacts how you show up. Yes. You have to get to a point where you believe enough in yourself to show up. And yes, that's a process. I mean, I literally, in my own journey and in the experience of all the clients I've worked with over the years, mindset and faith is literally like 80 or 90% of it, how to show up online or, create a website or whatever, to me, that's like the straightforward part. The biggest part is believing in yourself, like you said. And yes, in order for you to show up and share your voice, you have to establish a certain level of confidence in yourself. But there are also times that you might know that you're feeling guided to share something and you feel fear around it. And sometimes you just have to push through that and do it anyways. That's where knowing how to tap into that, recognizing that inner guidance is super helpful, because when you know what that feels like or sounds like, then it becomes a lot easier for you to push through that fear when it comes up.
Great point about that, pushing through. That was a really good point. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Yes. I think, so I know that we all have this intuition, and I know that, to your point, Jennifer, it's a muscle, and that we got to keep on, honing and really improving our intuition as we go about, and really following that calling, mustering the courage to follow that calling, and really, winning in life. Because I think until and unless we don't act, we don't, succeed. So we have to really put in the work and know, with the faith that you were talking about, know and have the faith that it will see us through. So I think this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for helping us really understand a little bit more about how we can listen to our intuition better, how we could understand the difference between the ego mind versus our intuition, and how we could implement some of these learnings in our life to really take action in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's my pleasure. I could talk to you about this for days. So
you light up, like thank you, but like you right now, even like your smile is so wide. It's so every time like you spoke, you absolutely radiated. So it's very clear that you are doing what you're called to do. It was.
Oh, thanks. I love that.
In turn, your energy like fed off to me personally. I know for me, like it totally fed off to me. So thank you. Because I knew some of what you did, but I'm so intrigued now. And I just love it. So, and I'm glad we got to bring you to sort of more the forefront. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I enjoyed speaking with all of you, and the questions were fantastic.
Awesome. Believe me, we could also continue to hear you all day long. So you
we'll have to do a part 2.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's wonderful work that you're doing, Jennifer. It's much needed, especially in this time. It's coming out more. This is what we need at a much greater level, more people need to have that light, share the light with others, is what I feel. So
yes,
thank you for what you are doing.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. And everyone has that light, right? It's like we talk about change and people talk about wanting to transform, but it's really about remembering who they already are and shedding all those layers,
Right. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you, everybody. And I'm sure the listeners are going to have a treat listening to this episode. This is fun. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Raw Talk, where real authentic women invite other fearless women in to have candid conversation. Do you like what you've heard? Then we want you to like and subscribe for more content. We'll see you next time.